Hello everyone, great to see you all today in this very nice weather in Istanbul. I hope you're enjoying your time thus far. So today we are going to cover a very important topic, but before that I would like to introduce myself real quick. This is Ilayda and I'm leading the business operation in Turkey and also in the MENA region for Exola. Very briefly, Exola is an international game commerce company with powerful set of tools and solutions that are specifically designed for video game industry. Over the past year, as a company, we started to see some shift from traditional monetization strategies. And thus, today we are going to focus on that shift and cover more on direct-to-consumer practices. As in every industry, it is very important to be familiar with the new trends, to seize new opportunities, and maximize the revenue potential. So today, we are going to cover the new ways of expanding your marketing and distribution strategies. We are going to discuss more about why traditional marketing and monetization strategies are not enough for your business and focus on what D2C is. And of course, we are going to talk more about how you should take some steps while going to direct-to-consumer. So let's start with some data and history. We are all familiar with the captivating world of ever-evolving gaming industry. And since 1995, we are seeing a huge transformation within the industry. From 1995, we see that the revenue cap of the market increased from $33 billion to captivating $200 billion in 2023. And according to Statista, it shows that for the recent years, we are seeing even a better increase rate. And for the last year's annual growth rate, it was around 8%. What does that mean? So, with the growth of 8% on an annual base, we are going to see almost $500 billion in 2028. So we are going to see that the market cap will be doubled within the next 4 years. But it is not only the revenue, but of course the user base is also growing very rapidly. So from 100 million users to 2.2 billion users in 2023, the very important part is that being familiar with the user dynamics. So while we see there's like an increased amount of user base, the important part is that they are willing to pay more and more every day. And the recent study shows that we see a 40% increase in the average ticket size. So last year, we were seeing the average ticket size, average revenue per users was around $100, while that is increased to $140 this year. All of these numbers actually justifies that there are new opportunities and there are new discoverabilities in the nature of gaming industry. So, how can we benefit more from this growth? In the past, there has been an overruling retailers and platforms in between the developers and their audience. So there has always been resellers still stand between you and your players. However, we are seeing a recent transition and we are seeing that developers and publishers are starting to take more and more control over their monetization strategies. So why and how? Why now? Because it became even more harder to generate revenue. It became even more expensive to acquire new users. So from a developer's, from a publisher's business perspective, it works in the way that if you're working with a reseller, and with a third-party platform, it causes additional cost and you don't have sufficient control over your players, over your data. And it actually, in other words, means that you are almost losing 40% of growth rate for your sales because you are restricted by the data, you cannot access to your user behavior loops, and you are paying additional platform fees. On the other hand, The recent studies show that more than 65% of your players also prefer to shop from their trusted and favorite brand's website directly. So when you see that there is an additional cost and there are some restrictions, and when you see that your players are also willing to make purchases from your own branded website, then you start to think like there is an opportunity. With the change of these preferences and the opportunities, we are seeing a huge transition from traditional marketing and monetization strategies to a more consumer direct approach. And this is not only in the gaming industry. We are seeing that all entertainment giants are leaning more to D2C, direct to consumer. For example, video streaming platforms like Disney and Netflix investing more on direct approaches to their consumers, to their clients, and they're sparing more funding towards indie projects. Just as the streaming music platforms. Spotify allows direct uploads, direct artist uploads, right? And sports streaming platforms are doing the same. They're allowing direct podcast uploads from their consumers. And when you consider gaming is one of the biggest parts of the entertainment industry, it is very, very natural that developers and publishers are leaning more into the direct-to-consumer approach as well. So now we have a better understanding of there is a shift towards direct-to-consumer. So what does it mean actually for gaming? It means that you are basically selling your games and in-game items directly to your players without an interference of a third-party platform, apart from it or in addition to that. Direct-to-consumer approach actually revolutionized the gaming industry by allowing you have a better control over the user data and having a better control over their monetization, marketing, and distribution strategies, right? Direct-to-consumer approach empowers developers and publishers to build stronger communities so that you can provide them a personalized experience, personalized sales flow, and maybe personalized gaming progresses as well. So all of these in between provides you a better understanding of your nature of the gaming and of your nature of the user behaviors so that you can maximize your revenue and improve your retention metrics and also improve your margins. Even biggest players in the industry have shifted towards a direct-to-consumer approach. Activision, Electronic Arts, Tilting Points, these are just some examples. And we've been working with many, many more than 100 publishers for the recent year who are channeling their approaches towards D2C. So there must be some benefits if those like giant companies are shifting towards D2C, right? So what are those benefits once again? So with D2C, you are able to generate higher margins because you are capturing more revenue from sales in addition to what you have from the platforms because you are not paying the additional fee. You're collecting more data, more of a user data, and this part is very important because you're able to understand how your users play, how your users make purchases, and what they purchase. When you understand the value of this data, you are able to transform and improve your product flow, your user experience, and also your sales flow. So once you gather this data from your users, from your sales funnels, you are able to reach bigger amounts of audiences, right? Normally, it is quite expensive, but once you understand the segmentation, once you understand the user specifics, you'll be able to figure out where your users are and how you can acquire them more effectively. The other thing is retention. If you're able to detect your users' habits, their flows, and their progression within the game, if you're able to detect the churn, where they are churning, where they are failing, then you're able to identify how you can improve the user experience, and you can improve even the retention rates with this data. However, Please note that D2C doesn't mean that you have to step away from third-party platforms. It doesn't compete with the third-party platforms, but it complements it. D2C means that you have additional sources for your revenue streams. You have multiple channels to distribute your games and your in-game items. So you are covering almost every angle where you can generate extra revenue. So now we understood that D2C is quite important and it has really good benefits. So how should we go under D2C? How should we take some steps in order to kick off this process? First, of course, you need to provide your players as many payment methods as possible. What does that mean? If they would like to pay with some certain payment method, some certain payment service provider, then you need to provide that method to your players. Second, your platform, your experience you are providing to the user throughout your web shop or new platform should be against anti-fraud. You wouldn't want to destroy your relationship with your users. And third, you have to be compliant with the local regulations and legislations, right? It could be privacy, it could be some kind of legal regulation, restriction, or some kind of tech validation, right? And four, and this is the most important thing, I believe, this is the personalized user experience. Once again, it is very important if you would like to create a synergy, if you would like to provide a better user experience, and if you would like to create a better sales flow for your users. All different but very important steps. So we are going to take and evaluate every step one by one. Let's start with the alternative payment methods because this is the core layer where you're going to generate extra revenue. So think of your players. It could be from US, Europe, Brazil, India, Turkey, China. Wherever your players are, they have their preferred local payment methods. So, as I mentioned just a second ago, you have to cover as many payment methods as possible. If you're not working with an aggregator, then you have to work with various service providers so that you are covering multiple methods. And if you're not working with an aggregator, that means combining different service providers and taking care of the legal parts for you, on behalf of you, then you have to take care of the legal, financial, and integration parts by yourself. It may sound challenging, taking care of everything by yourself as a maybe indie or mid-sized company, but it's definitely worth the effort. Why? Because alternative payment methods accounts for 50% of the global payment scope. So we have digital payment methods, we have cash payment methods, we have bank transfers, prepaid cards, telco carriers, coins, right? So you have to cover any kind of alternative payment methods just to be sure that you are covering the 50% of the payment scope in the industry. And please remember that having alternative payment methods also mean that you are reaching to new users. You are reaching to new paying audiences, right? Because 90% of the users, even coming from the major markets, like Tier 1 markets, they prefer to make payments with their own preferred payment methods. What does that mean? Venmo in the States, Klarna in Europe, WeChat in China, Bitcash in Japan. So every region, every country have their own alternative payment methods compared to credit cards, PayPal, Amazon Pay, GPay. So you have to cover such methods in order to seize and explore the unique paying users in the global payment experience. So again, we understand, I hope, the importance of alternative payment methods. So what are the key takeaways? Once again, with the coverage of alternative payment methods, you are expanding the unique paying user size, unique paying user scale, especially in the major markets. Don't consider the other markets. Of course, you are covering Brazil, LATAM, MENA, and like Africa, but even in the major markets like US, Canada, UK, Japan, Asia-Pacific countries, there are alternative payment methods dominating the gaming industry. Second thing, you're increasing the average ticket size by 25%. With alternative payment methods, we see that the payment amount increases heavily compared to credit cards and PayPal. And again, third one, compared to traditional payment methods, alternative payment methods brings you higher conversion, about 8%. So when we consider of APMs, alternative payment methods, what you see is more paying users, more average ticket size, and better conversion rates. So there is a huge opportunity for you to undergo to these challenges, right? It's definitely worth it, 100%. And once you have the payments coverage, then you have to take care of fraud, right? Because you wouldn't want to lose revenue due to fraudulent activity. And of course, you definitely wouldn't want to lose your reputation or players' loyalty. So when you're considering to acquire an anti-fraud solution, it has to be solid. And you have to control what they are actually checking, right? So first, they should be able to detect fraud in compliance with your in-game protocols and your users' shopping behavior. Second, they should be able to separate fraudulent activity from the legitimate purchases with a machine learning algorithm, but in addition to a manual review process. They should 100% have the manual customer support to eliminate the extra cases, right? And the third one is that they should be able to stop fraud by leveraging some kind of like anti-fraud filters, but still it has to be in combination with your in-game cross-game analytics. If you're able to cover the alternative payment methods, and if you're able to work with a great anti-fraud solution, then you have to take care of your compliance and tax regulations, right? We generally better understand the importance of having APMs and having a solid anti-fraud system, but we do not pay enough attention to compliance part. Why? Because most of the time, this is something we do not have many information, many know-how about, right? So let's cover what compliance is together. Of course, there are so many different variations of a compliance for each payment method and for each region, and we won't be able to cover everything in this session, but be aware that every single payment method and every single region has their own regulations and compliance policies. It could be about payment systems, it could be about privacy, but no matter what, you have to be in compliance with their guidances. And on the other hand, you have to take care of tax, right? It could be sales tax in US and Canada. It could be VAT in Europe. So no matter what, you have to cover those taxes. And most of the time, we receive questions about companies, studios, developers having deals, agreements with governments. So they have like the government support because they're like a startup. But be aware of that agreement, that deal you have with the government is usually based on your income tax, while we are talking about the sales tax. Sales tax is something you cover on behalf of your players, right? If you're players from the States, if they're making some purchases, you have to pay the sales tax to the US, right? So that is something totally different, and you have to calculate, collect, and file those taxes to the local authorities. So we are done with the boring part, I would say, the most important but boring part. And now the fun part, user experience, personalized user experience. So Excel case studies show that even with little differentiations in your visuals, you can make outrageous differences in the sales growth, in the conversion rates. Just as an example, very, very basic change of transition from a static image to an animated GIF can provide you 18% increase, 18% lift in your sales, in your conversions. Just to justify it, when tailoring your checkout experiences, which is where your users complete their purchases, if you're tailoring your checkout to your game's elements, fonts, color scheme, or visuals, it increases the conversion rate, the completion rate up to 5%. So 17% from a visual change from your catalog, and 5% from the checkout tailoring. So just imagine what you could have been achieved with personalization, with customization throughout all of your users' experience in your branded platform. And one of the most important and one of the most advantageous things of the direct-to-consumer approach is that you are able to communicate with your users, right? You are able to provide some banners, some GIFs, some pop-ups. You are able to let them know that you have added a new payment method. You have providing them exclusive item. You are providing them an very, very supportive customer team. So if you let them know, if you engage with them, if you communicate with your players, and it doesn't have to be like verbal communication, but visual communication, then we see that our customers, our partners, who really manage this communication and engagement see more than 200% growth in their unique payer user number and also growth of sales. So when you see such numbers, such great achievements, you should start to think of why you shouldn't go direct to consumer, right? So now we covered what direct-to-consumer approach is, their benefits, and some of the steps you need to undertake if you're considering going in the same direction, right? So we see that there are some challenges, and there are some steps that you may not have any knowledge. But there are companies like Exala who address these challenges and complexities of global distribution, marketing, and monetization. We keep improve ourselves, improve our D2C solutions and tools. And right now, we are able to help our developers, our partners, serve over 200 geographies with more than 700 payment methods in compliance and with the best-in-class anti-fraud solution. And please remember, with the right tools and following the best practices and such steps, you can achieve great results and foster really, really good communications with your players on a global scale. Rest of the presentation has more details on D2C because, of course, this is like a huge topic. But I would like to keep the presentation simple, so I'm just going to cover very rapidly what we can provide you as an additional information. You can see alternative payment methods in some specific regions, market share, average ticket size, conversion rate, benefits of alternative payment methods in different regions. So we have the information, and if you have any specific audiences, if you're targeting any specific markets, just let us know and we can provide you some more information. I kept saying that personalized user experience is quite important. Of course, you have to undergo some specific procedures, right? You have to follow some processes and steps. And of course, you have to be integrated with some analytical tools. But D2C is just an approach, right? There are different steps, there are different journeys. You have to focus on your operations as you're developing a game, as if you're developing your in-game economy, because this is just the beginning, this is just the idea, and this is just a trend, but you have to work on it in order to make it even more and more and more effective. And one of the things I just would like to highlight is that a challenge, a misunderstanding that our partners face in general. And this is just about an example about loot boxes, but it is the understanding of you're able to sell anything if you're not a part of a third-party platform, if you're not a part of a reseller, right? That is not correct. So you have to check your content. You have to check what you're selling. You have to still be compliant with the local regulations, regional laws, and you should be eliminating and preventing any kind of, I would say, adult content, chance elements, and of course, like gambling. It doesn't mean that when you go D2C, you're not complying to these elements, I would say. So this is the end of the presentation.